Here it is, the Wyze Video Doorbell V2, the newest video doorbell from Wyze. Maybe you saw my unboxing. This is my deep dive review. I'm going to take you step by step through the hardware, what's different with this doorbell versus the previous one. I'll also show you my install process and the quirk I had while trying to install it. And of course, we'll show you video quality, all three different modes, and I'll put this side by side with another video doorbell. And a lot of people asking about the microSD card, so I'll show you exactly how that works. That's a new feature on here. And if you stick around until the end, I'll go over the three things you should know before you buy the new Wyze Video Doorbell V2. Tech it before you wreck it. I'm Kirk, and let's dive right into it. So we'll start with the hardware. First and foremost, it's a pretty impressive piece of hardware, especially for the price. It's got a nice black plastic finish on the front. It feels nice and solid. It's also as simple as it should be, which I think is important here. Now there are some differences, some key differences between this doorbell and the previous Wyze video doorbell. It's got a 2K camera on it, and it has a larger field of view, they say, than before. That gives you a better full body perspective of somebody who's at your front door. It also now supports the chime, the doorbell chime that you already probably have inside your house. This is a big deal. I feel like every video doorbell should work with a normal doorbell chime, but the previous Wyze video doorbell did not. So that's a big change here. And the most important difference, I think, is the addition of a microSD card slot. This gives you a lot more options, especially if you don't want to pay for a subscription. Installation was pretty cut and dry. Take a look. This is me installing the Wyze Video Doorbell V2 on the front of my house. Now I had to remove a Nest doorbell camera to put this one in. I have two wires hanging out of the front of my house. Most newer homes will have the same two-wire doorbell wires coming out of the front of your house. It gives it a little bit of power. It also connects to the chime inside your house. So you attach two screws to that mounting plate, screw it right into the front of your house, right next to your door. And then those two wires connect to the back of the Wyze Video Doorbell V2. Doesn't matter which one goes on which, simply connect them, and that's pretty much it in terms of the install. Once that plate is mounted, you can simply take the video doorbell and press it up against the plate, and it sort of locks in there. Now there's another step here, and this is the Chime Controller. It's a little black box that connects to the chime inside your house. So I followed the instructions in the app. I installed this Chime Controller on my chime, and then it wouldn't work. I followed it to a T. I put each wire where it needed to go. It wasn't super complicated, but it just wouldn't work. So I then uninstalled it, put the wires back the way they were when I started, and what do you know? It worked perfectly fine. So now I'm confused because I don't have the Chime Controller installed, but the doorbell's working exactly as it should. When I press the doorbell on the outside, it rings the chime in my house. I don't know what's going on here. If somebody who knows doorbell wiring better than I do can explain this, do that in the comments. I'm gonna reach out to Wyze and find out why I don't seem to need the Chime Controller that was included with the video doorbell. Let's talk about video quality. This is so important, and the V2 has this wider field of view, and take a look. This is what it looks like. This is video from the Wyze V2 during the middle of the day. It's overcast and snowy. I mean, why wouldn't it be snowy in October in Colorado? Gotta love that, right? So that's pretty good quality there. You can see what this looks like. Next, this is the same camera on the front of my house at night, first using the infrared light that's built into the camera. But you don't have to use that because they have a new feature called color night vision. And this is what that looks like. This is what the camera sounds like. Is anybody home? Hello? So the color night vision is a little less detailed in my testing than the IR, but I actually personally like the color night vision better. I just like seeing colors. I think it's a better representative image, even if it's not quite as clear as the infrared. Now let me show you the Wyze V2 video right next to the Nest doorbell camera, the one I had installed before, just to give you a side-by-side of another doorbell camera. I mean, don't get me wrong, the Nest is a lot more expensive, but this is a good comparison here. So there it is, the video pulled straight from the camera. Should be able to give you some perspective on what the quality of the video is going to look like. Now, the micro SD slot on the side. A lot of people asking about this SD slot because this is a big change with this new doorbell camera, and it's pretty simple. There's a rubber gasket. You open the rubber gasket with your fingernail, and the micro SD card pops right into the side. Now, I do want to point out, this is a weird location for a micro SD slot on a doorbell camera because there's security questions, right? Shouldn't it be on the back of the doorbell so people can't access it easily? I will say if you pop that card out, it immediately records video and then uploads it to the cloud, even if you don't have a subscription. So that's a way to sort of catch somebody who might be stealing your micro SD card, but at that point the SD card's gone. I'd rather it not be stolen in the first place. So again, weird decision. Not sure why they didn't put it on the back in a more secure and hidden location. Okay, so the micro SD card slot works like this. It essentially just records a giant video loop. It's always recording. Depending on the size of your card is when it'll start erasing old video and recording new. It supports up to a 256 gig card, so you could really record days, if not weeks, of video on the micro SD card slot. It's a great option, and if you have the Wyze V2, there's no reason not to have a micro SD card inside this doorbell camera, if not just as a backup if the cloud for some reason doesn't catch what you want it to catch. So here's how you navigate it in the app. It's a little quirky, to be quite honest. You pick the date and then you slide up and down through the timeline here to pick the time of the day. I didn't think it was the easiest navigation in the world. It does sort of snap to the alerts. You can see them marked here on that timeline. It sort of snaps to them. I just feel like there's got to be a better way to do this, but I do want to applaud Wyze for putting an SD card slot in the Wyze Video Doorbell V2, because there's a lot of people who won't get a subscription because they have an SD card in here. So Wyze did that because they know that people want it, even if it might cannibalize some of their subscriptions. I want to give you a quick tour of all the settings here inside the Wyze app, which is the app that covers all your Wyze devices, including your doorbell camera. So I'll click on the settings button in the top right corner here and jump right into this. We'll start with detection settings, and you can see you've got a motion detection sensitivity setting. You can adjust how sensitive it is to motion. Then you've got the same thing for sound detection as well. You've got motion tagging, so this can tag people, pets. It can detect if there's a package on your front porch, for example. And I like this. In detection zone, take a look. You can define exactly where it detects motion in your camera. So for example, right here, I've got a Halloween decoration that keeps setting off my doorbell camera. So I block it out, that way it won't detect that anymore, which I think is pretty cool. Let's go into the next menu item. We've got event recording, and this tells you, do you want to record events triggered by motion, by sound? Do you want to record all events or just smart detection events? And if you click on customize, you'll see what that means. You can pick which events: person, friendly faces, pet, vehicle, package. So this can set it so that it doesn't detect a vehicle, for example. Maybe you've got cars passing all day long and you don't want it to detect that. But keep in mind, if I turn any of these on, for example, I turn this on, it tells me you've got to have Cam Plus, the subscription, in order to use that, which is frustrating, but the prices are actually super reasonable, especially compared to other doorbell camera companies. Let me jump back and go into notifications. Now this is simple. You can turn notifications on or off. You can also hit manage and decide which notifications you want to see. Nice to see some granular level settings for that, because you really want to be able to control those notifications so you're not inundated with them all day long. In advanced settings, you've got your micro SD settings here. So you can select two options. You can record continuously 24/7 and it just erases stuff after it fills up, erases the oldest video, replaces it with new video, or you can record events only. So events only is an interesting option, but I think if you've got a decent sized SD card in there, just record everything. That way you're covered in case it doesn't detect something or a certain time of day and you want to go back and see what happened. In night vision mode, you've got auto, on and off. So if you hit on, it's going to put the infrared mode on. I leave it on auto, seems to work well. Camera status light will turn the light off on the front of the camera, the ring around the doorbell button. You can decide to show your timestamp on your video, you can show the Wyze logo, and you can turn sound recording on or off if you like. You also have the feature here to sync time between your phone and your video doorbell recordings. In the chime settings, this is pretty simple but also pretty important. You pick which kind of chime you have in your home that's wired into your doorbell. None, digital, or mechanical. So in my case, I have a mechanical one that's got those old school chimes in there, works pretty well. You can also turn on Do Not Disturb, which basically says if somebody presses the doorbell, sure, it'll give you a notification on your phone, but it's not going to ring the chime in your house. Under accessories, I suppose this is for adding some sort of accessory to your doorbell. I don't have any settings in there. Under rules, this is kind of cool. You can trigger smart rules within the Wyze ecosystem. If somebody pushes your doorbell, you want to start recording on another camera, for example. All kinds of cool stuff, different schedules. location triggers. Maybe it automatically starts recording video on your doorbell camera as soon as you leave the house or something along those lines. But you can play with that and learn more about that when you jump in there and really start diving into the Wyze ecosystem. Device info shows you all the basic info, your signal strength for your Wi-Fi, which is really important. By the way, it does work only with Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz. It does not work with 5, so make sure your router supports 2.4. You've got the firmware version and just some basic information there. And Wyze support just takes you to a basic help support information here. And then you can restart the camera or delete the device from your account altogether. Okay, so now I want to go over the 3 things I think you should definitely know about before you buy the Wyze Video Doorbell V2. First of all, just some confusion over that Chime controller. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I'm not sure why it's there if, in my case, I didn't need it. So I'm going to reach out to Wyze. Again, comment below if you have any idea what that's all about, but I just don't get it. Bottom line, I don't know how you are, but when I'm installing something and it works, I stop. So as soon as it started working, I just stopped, and it's working just fine. Also, the microSD slot is amazing. The fact that they included this is awesome, especially if you don't want to pay for a subscription. I just don't get why they put it on the outside, which makes it more susceptible to somebody snatching it out of your doorbell camera. The other thing too is there's no screw to lock this into the mounting plate. If somebody yanks on it, it comes off. Most doorbell cameras have some sort of screw, usually with like a T5 or some sort of Torx screwdriver that locks it, so it makes it more difficult for somebody to steal this off your front porch. All right, so I want to explain how the cloud recording works. This is aside from the microSD card slot. So if you don't have a subscription, it'll record video, 12-second clips. When somebody presses the doorbell button, it'll save those for 2 weeks in the cloud. If it detects motion, it does not record video to the cloud. It only saves a snapshot, a picture, which is kind of a bummer because I don't really need video when people ring the doorbell. I mean, that's nice and I do want that, but what I need video for is when somebody drops off a package or when somebody steals a package or when somebody vandalizes my house. Well, it's not going to record video into the cloud for that unless you have a subscription. If you have a subscription, that changes everything. And I do want to point out their subscription prices are the cheapest you're going to find in the doorbell world. They just are dirt cheap. So I hate to criticize them too much because their prices are so reasonable. I think their basic plan is like 20 bucks a year. So it's less than $2 a month to have a subscription on this doorbell camera. But I think you should know that without a subscription, you're not going to get video in the cloud with motion activity only when somebody presses the doorbell. Now, all of this aside, who cares? Because you have an SD card slot, right? Buy an SD card. Heck, you can get a 16 gigabyte SD card for under 10 bucks. I got a link below in the description if you need to find one on Amazon. They're easy to find. If you have this doorbell, put an SD card in it. Even if you're paying for a subscription, it makes no sense not to have that backup for as cheap as it is. In fact, when you buy the doorbell, which I have a link to down in my description as well, just buy an SD card with it at the same time. It's a no-brainer. And with all of this said, it's $40. This thing is $40. This thing is dirt cheap for a doorbell camera, and you're not really going to find something of this quality with these features for this price. You're just not. It's a great deal, and I'm a big fan. You know, there are some question marks here, and I just addressed those, but overall, I would recommend this to anybody who wants a budget video doorbell from a company that has now been around for long enough that we feel like we can rely on their products. And I want to know what you think. What are your thoughts? Are you going to buy one of these? Are you going to buy a different brand instead? Do you have concerns? Do those things I brought up concern you? Throw a comment below. I'd love to continue this conversation. And if there's more you want to know about this doorbell camera, I've got it installed in my house right now, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot more cool videos coming up, and we love to make cool tech videos so that you guys can learn more just like us. Tech it before you wreck it. I'm Kirk.